Okay, welcome to Nordic Culture Point in Helsinki. Nordic Culture Point is an institution of the Nordic Council of Ministers, which works to support Nordic cooperation within the area of culture and to increase awareness of Nordic culture in Finland and in the Nordic region. Today we have guests from the international artist group Ruska Ensemble, which is based here in Finland. In connection with their ongoing production Donna Quijote, the last part of Ruska Ensemble's Arctic Trilogy, they will today talk about their experience of international artistic cooperation during these challenging times. This discussion is a part of our series Arctic Roots, consisting of discussions, documentaries and art projects on traditions, identity and the living space for Arctic people, which transcends across national borders. Ruska Ensemble, from which we have guests here today, has been working to create a platform where indigenous people are brought together and given a chance to speak up their mind in their own disappearing language. So, with these words, I hand over the microphone to moderator and director Laura Mattila, who will introduce today's topic further and the rest of the panelists. Welcome.
Thank you. So I'm Laura, and I was actually the director's assistant in this Donna Quijote, and I am here with Alexander and Maria, and we are talking about Donna Quijote, which is an example of this international artistic collaboration. And it's a joint production of Ruska Ensemble, National Theater of Finland, and then the National Theater of Greenland. And we were supposed to have a premiere on the 9th of April, so in a few weeks. We will maybe talk about that a bit later. And Donna Quijote is a multicultural project, a production where there are lots of people from different backgrounds, and there are lots of different art mediums also. And on the stage you can also hear lots of different languages, for example Inarisami, then Spanish, Greenlandish, Norwegian, some Finnish too. And as an art piece, Donna Quijote is about the search for hope and meaning. And with me here today are two of our lovely dancers, Alexander Montgomery Andersen and Maria Peredo-Guzman. I did it right, yes. So welcome. And first of all, I would like to ask you, how did you come to be part of Donna Quijote?
So I can start. I was first introduced to it, it must have been at least 2 years ago. And I later heard that it was because I was a dear friend now, whom I'm working with in this production, Auri Ahola, had recommended me to the two directors, Ari-Pekka and Jarkko Lahti. And so I received an email about Donna Quijote and their plans, and working together with the National Theater of Greenland as well. And their plans to create this piece. But I think I was really first introduced to it when the two directors came to Nuuk on like a research trip, and I got to meet them and talk to them and hear their thoughts, and you know, a thing that maybe is becoming more and more unique in these times, being in the same room with them without masks, within normal distance.
Yeah.
Sitting, eating, drinking some coffee and talking about the project.
Yeah. How about you?
Well, in my case, it happened like almost in every international collaboration I made part of by coincidence. I was collaborating with a visual artist in Belgium, and his partner, she's a producer with whom I collaborated in Bolivia a few years ago. She was living here and doing an internship, and so someone asked her if she knows someone with experience in dance and indigenous people, ethnochoreology, ethnography, anthropology, and that's how she introduced them to me and me to them. So I received a letter of invitation and a lot of information about what Ruska was and about the project, and I was super into the project as soon as I knew about the existence of it. Then there were like 2 years of communications before it came to reality.
Yeah. Okay, so I am the newest member because I am here because of the pandemic. Actually, I was supposed to have premiere in another city. So, and because of pandemic, that was cancelled, and I was like, okay, what am I going to do? Then I heard about this project and asked if I could be part of this, and they, Jarkko and Ari-Pekka took me on, and it was love at first sight when I heard about all these things. But what I'm interested in is what were your first impressions of Donna Quixote when you heard about the production, the themes, or did you have any thoughts when you got the script and that kind of things?
Should I go first now?
Yeah.
When I read about the trilogy, it was quite surprising to see that they were interested in a Spanish literature piece. And when I received the script, I was more surprised because it speaks about things that I care a lot about. And there were many exchanges, especially with Ari-Pekka, the person who wrote the second part of Donna Quixote, and with Tuomas, the person who did the composition of the sound of the second part, about the tone and the images that were proposed during the script. They were really open during the communications. They listened to me. We tried many different things. So I was very happy with the whole project.
Yeah.
I think some of my first impressions was like I remember the very first impressions of like receiving an email and like a short description of the project and what it was about, and also seeing then like immediately, beginning to do the research and okay, go to their website and see who are these people and seeing that they already had worked with the National Theater of Greenland on their previous piece, the Arctic Odyssey, and then kind of contacting the person who was working in that piece, who was a friend of mine, and talking to her and being like, yeah, so what was your impression? And so I think like my very first impression of them was it seemed like a ensemble or company who very much focused on the intercultural and also the inclusivity. I remember that came out very like direct in the first couple of mails, that it was important that we had a say in like the development of the piece and in the way the way we were going to be portrayed on stage.
Yeah.
So that was like one of my really first impressions. And then also, as I said, when the two directors came to Greenland, then I also got like a deeper impression of them. For me, I think one of the things that has sat with me is like the impression of how they were really focused on a lot of the same things that I felt I had been focusing on artistically the past couple of years. So there was like this resonance of we were like on the same wavelength of what is important to give to an audience at this time.
Yeah, there's lots of similarities. What I can also say that one of the first things that I realized when I was talking with them about me being part of the production was, I think, inclusivity and openness. And because I was like, okay, I can do whatever, because this is for me. I just want to learn more. I want to see you guys work and so on. So. Whatever I can do to help. And they were like, no, we don't want you to make coffee. We don't want you to move papers. We want you to be there. And we want you to be there as an artist. So it was kind of surprising. It was okay, you are actually really open to all people who are involved in making these pieces. So that is also something I realized from the get-go. So yeah, I think it's really special about Ruska Ensemble. So I actually don't know, even though we have been working together with this, how was it to get here, like to get from another country to Finland? Like how is it now during these pandemic times? Because I was thinking like, okay, is this even possible during like 2021? And I remember being afraid, are they going to make it? So how was it actually to get to here before the rehearsal started?
Well, it was like it was kind of this thing with, I remember thinking that I wanted to plan everything, but at the same time I couldn't plan too far, because and a week later it'll be like new rules, and then a week after that it was new rules, and so you kind of planned as much as you could, and then it was just like, I think like the tactic was like just overcompensate, just get all the papers, get like recommendations, get like, what's it called, like contracts, get signed, get letters of invitation from the theater, and I've been under a grant from the Kone Foundation, so get like a personal invitation letter from them, and a letter where it says yes, he will be staying here, and then a letter from Ruska Ensemble, and then they had sent some papers to like the border control that I got, and I had like this thick like pile of papers. And then of course, then there's all the testing, and I had like a little hiccup, just like practically coming here. When I was going to the airport the day I was supposed to leave, I got there like an hour and a half before my flight. I had my tests, everything, And I get there and I'm looking up at the screens trying to find my flight, and I don't see it. I go over to like the check-in, and then I'm like, I was supposed to be on this flight, and it's cancelled. Okay. And why did I not know about it? And then they begin clicking, and then it's like, oh yeah, you were moved to a flight 2 hours ago. Oh. And again, why do I not know this? So, then it became like this whole thing of waiting and bureaucracy between airlines, finding out whose fault it was, because they were supposed to send me a email or a text that never got to me, and ending up with finding out that I have to fly the next day, but because I have to fly the next day, then my corona test would be too old, so I had to get a new test, and so like that was a fun 24 hours. But then then day after I got on the plane and I got here, and I had my pile of papers, and the border control only wanted to see like 1/3 of the papers. and it went smoothly. I got in, got through, and
That's a lot.
Well, I was less unlucky. Well, it's not necessary to say that in 2020, like almost everything got cancelled. Like the 80% of my work was cancelled. So I wasn't sure if I would come to Finland if it would happen. But the more the date was closer, it was happening. So something very important to mention about international artistic collaboration is that the more south, like the global south, your performers are, the more paperwork you need to do as a performer, but also the producers, because you need visas, you need permits, you need certain agreements between governments, laws, etc. So my case wasn't that extreme because I am a Belgian resident, but we needed many certificates that prove that I am allowed to stay in Europe, that I am allowed to travel more than certain time. And to that, adding the corona norms, I also had the blood test, the PCR 2 days before, and the PCR in my changing flights in Amsterdam. So, and when I came, I was supposed to stay 5 days in quarantine. That's why I came earlier, 5 days before the rehearsals, so I could do my quarantine and have my last PCR test. And yes, then I was there the first day with the rest of the team.
It was funny that every time someone came from another country, there was a small like festival on WhatsApp, like he's here, she's here, and everyone was like, yeah,
They make it.
yeah. But
I also had like a little stress point, like also when I had to go out of my quarantine and then take the last PCR test, and for some reason I didn't get the answer. But I ended up calling them, and they were like, oh, because I had a foreign number, and for some reason I didn't get the text message. So I was like sitting there like, if I'm gonna make it on time, my metro leaves in 10 minutes. I'm like calling them, like, oh yeah, you've gotten a text. I'm like, no, I haven't. Oh, but it's negative. Okay, then I go. Like I had my bag packed and I was just ready to.
Yeah.
So that was a nice moment. I remember when we all gathered on the stage the first day with, like, felt like 2.5 meters between each chair in this gigantic circle.
Yeah.
And just being like, okay, so this is happening.
Yeah, and it was crazy in a way after a year of not seeing a lot of people, and then we are there, and we're really far apart, and like, okay, this is happening now. And the next question is that what was the process like working in Donna Quixote? When we started and we actually saw each other, how was it for you?
My turn.
Your turn.
Well, if we speak about the artistic, it was tremendously enriching because we come from so many different backgrounds. And comparing it with other experiences I had, I would like to say that usually when you invite indigenous artists or you speak about international collaboration, it's not new, it's happening. But many times the bodies and the voices of these people are instrumentalized and are used but not really taken in account. And in the process from the very first day, I felt that we were there to be ourselves, that the directors, the technical team, and the other collaborators really wanted us to be there, to be present. And that made a big difference in relationship to other collaborations where I have been working with.
Yeah, I can, I completely agree, and also can elaborate on, I feel like often there's been said, oh, we really want your voices to be heard, and we think it's important that you come with your input, and most people do, but for some reason, most of the times it doesn't go into praxis. And I felt like this is the first time where I've experienced that it really truly came into practice, and there was this equal say between people, and not just that, Ruska also achieved managing to make a place where everyone felt safe, or I can't speak on everyone's, but it felt like everyone felt safe. I felt very safe to actually say our opinions and what we're thinking and what we're contemplating on, and the small little issues you get as an artist when working with new people, and I feel like now, like, this has raised my expectation for future collaborations, and that is I think that's really an amazing thing, and been a really nice thing to be part of.
Yeah.
In many ways.
I think there was lots of room for like discussing things, and I think what was really special for me was that it wasn't just about this positive, we are here together and we are same-minded, but there was actually room to also disagree and to say like, okay, I don't understand this, or I have problem with this, and it was actually, I think it was the situations were the atmosphere was safe, so and if someone had a concern, it was always like there was room to have this discussion about that, and I think it was really like, but it was about like responsibility also, that everyone was responsible for the atmosphere, and it was really special. And another thing was that because there was really room and no one was rushing, because sometimes you can feel that, okay, we don't have enough time, and that's why we start to skimp on the discussions and so on. So I didn't ever feel like that in that process. Then another question about this pandemic. How did it affect the process of working? What was it like in day-to-day life to work in these weird times?
I feel like there was, it's set like some very clear boundaries, like just practically. We had, like, for example, like lunch is at 1, and you have to be done with lunch at 1:30, because then another group is coming into the lunch area. So it's like, like very like, okay, now it's lunch, we go to, so I think it also like set like this. I've experienced in other productions, or like, okay, lunch will be at 1, and then when 1 o'clock comes and we're like, oh, just 10 more minutes, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just like, it was like, right, 1 o'clock, let's go. It was like, you go, because this is our time slot to be in the cafeteria. So like just practically it set like some very clear boundaries. Then there was was it after the first week? I don't remember. I think it was after a week. Then the first week we were allowed to practice on stage. As dancers, we could be on stage and practice without masks. But then I think it was after a week we were told that now the new restrictions have come and we need to have a mask on while dancing, and that was very limiting for a dancer, for someone who is being physical constantly. And I felt like that was a challenge, trying to figure out how to work with that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was actually, I was thinking it was really weird that you actually have breathing moments, like, okay, stop now, go and breathe for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing I also realized with the masks was like this. All of a sudden, when we went like down into the canteen because we were going to eat, we took the masks off, and I was like seeing one of the technicians' face for the first time. I'm like, oh, I've been looking into his eyes for a week, but I didn't know that's how his face looked. This like the social distancing becomes even larger when you also lose people's, I feel like people's identity, you know.
Yeah, going on a bit with that, and speaking about how our voices were heard, and etc. The first day was a big shock for the dancers. So the second day, the persons in charge of the costumes and etc. did these masks for us. I brought it to show it. So there's a space inside, so we can actually breathe with them. They are super comfy. They are made of cloth, so that helped a lot. Also, the distance we have between everybody were very explicit. What else? The schedules, very specific. And it's the first time I work in Finland, so I don't have a way to compare. But in other productions, you know, you're hugging your collaborators, you're shaking hands, you're very close, and in this one we couldn't. But nevertheless, people were really careful, really attentive with us. All the technicians, like there were like 20 persons around us every day, like really respecting the distances, really taking care of anything we needed. And that was overwhelming for me, because I'm used to work in much smaller venues with less people, and not always with people taking care about my well-being. So that was that felt very comfortable.
I was also thinking about touching. So if you think about, I'm also working in Finland, that this was the first time I realized that, okay, we are not hugging, because now, okay, the dancers can touch each other because they have to, but we have to keep our distance from that. So we are not touching. And I think it was like week 2 that I realized that I haven't touched anyone in this production, and then to realize how big thing that is. It was really, then I realized that, okay, I'm a small island here, and I'm not going to collide with others. So to realize how big part that is also. And I remember that every time we had a weekend, there was a small fear. Are we going to continue on Monday? You're reading the news and all that. When are they going to make more restrictions? Though every time there was like 2 days off, I'm like, okay, are we continuing? Every time. Yeah, so that was something really new to experience. And as we know, Donna Quijote is not having the premiere on the 9th of April, so it is delayed, and it will have the premiere on 2023. So I want to ask you, what is it like to be unable to finish production?
Well, the dominant feeling is disappointment, but hey, we're doing it in 2 years, in 2 more years. Of course, in the beginning it was a shock, and at the same time, you, as an artist, I think one needs to understand that one is not more or less than any other worker. So if all of us are making these efforts and doing these sacrifices, if all of us are in it, it's okay. And yeah, after the shock was like, okay, what can we actually do? Can we produce material? Can we continue communicating with other collaborators? Can we rethink the material? Or can we just let go and wait to see what happens? Because for me, a big learning from the pandemic last year was like, sometimes you need to let go to see what happens and what comes back later. So I'm a bit in that spirit by now.
Yeah, I can very much agree with like saying the biggest feeling is this feeling of like, oh, it feels like a loss.
Yeah.
Like we were doing it like against all odds, and then we weren't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I think also, yeah, taking a lot of also what Maria said, but also seeing the value in the work we have done, even though it's being postponed, and we still got to establish a lot of things, both just practically for the structure of the piece, but also like getting to meet each other physically and actually begin working with the material, and again, as being people from different places, actually getting to have that time to begin to connect and understand, like, okay, who is Maria and who is Auri and who is Pekka and Carolina and these people that we're going to be on stage with, and all the people around. I think also in many ways that it can actually create a strength, because we will have now this time to process this past month,
Yeah.
and process all the work we've been doing, and then we get to and then try again.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird that it the feeling of loss, and it's a loss that you can't kind of explain, because it is so we did something and no one will see it now, and okay, it stops now because someone called that now this is called off. We can't, because the situation is getting worse in Helsinki, and it is really difficult. I have realized that it's difficult to explain to someone who hasn't experienced that. But now I'm also thinking about how much depth it will bring to when 2023, when people come together again, and we have had this month, and we have been the fighters fighting there, and then someone like, okay, no, you can't do that anymore. It like cuts and so on. So I'm thinking that 23 will be really good.
Well, I also wanted to share with you a reflection, and it's about hope. No, because the piece turns around hope. What is hope? What is to act with hope? And I realized with this loss that maybe hope is a practice. It's something we do every day, every time, regardless of the result. So maybe that's what Donna Quijote is bringing me in this moment. This kind of hope, which means also resistance.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah. So if we have been talking about the future for Donna Quijote, but I would want to ask you, what do you think that the future will be like for international collaborations? So what is the future for us working from different backgrounds? In your dreams, or
I think to kind of ride on the wave of hope, I think that it is forcing us to think more creatively of how to do international collaborations. I think one thing that we have all witnessed the past year that has really expanded, and that is like the use of digital, how do you say, digital elements, yeah, and how they can work to our benefit. But I think it will force us, as I said, to think differently in how to achieve international collaborations. I think also at the same time, this pandemic it really puts a focus on how important they are, and how important the aspect of physically being the same place is.
Yeah.
And I think because of that, we will definitely find some way to make it continue to happen. I think the thing that has to the big hurdle is the local, locally transmitting of the virus. So if that can come under control, it doesn't really matter if I'm coming from another country or not.
Yeah.
As long as I get to the place and then act within the rules of that place, then it will be possible. And I think we're going to be forced to be more structured in how we approach international collaborations.
Yeah.
Well, I think international collaborations are and will be less than before the pandemics in number, but because they are less, we will value them more, and also the local collaborations will become stronger, because there's also this how do you say, this fashion of, yes, I am an international artist, I need to travel, I need to go everywhere, I take a Ryanair this week to this country and this week. It was a bit like that before the pandemics. And then in the moment where you have to stay in a place and confront your own boundaries, your own limits, and also encounter the others who are like you began to create a stronger community. And when you come from this stronger community, also the international collaborations become stronger too, become more rich, because you are not only speaking for yourself, but for your own community. So I think that can be, like, in a long way, a positive aspect of international collaborations. And I agree with Alexander that, of course, we can do as many Zoom as possible meetings, and we will, but we cannot lose the possibility of meeting each other and creating together in the same time and place.
Yeah, I'm also thinking about both of those things. Like, one of the things that is positive is that we are forced to know these different, like, digital platforms, how to work a Zoom or Teams meeting. And even though at the moment we hate it because it's everything, because you can't see anyone, and you have to, like, on daily basis you have to go on Zoom and meet people and party on Zoom and all that. So at the moment it's sad, but in a way, thinking about the future, maybe it is, like, when people know about these things, maybe someone will think about, like, okay, maybe we can do international collaboration, because we know that there are these different platforms that we can use for, like, pre-production, like meeting and talking about a text or a piece or anything, or something like this. I would hope that I'm thinking that maybe that is more possible for me, because I know about these things. And then again, now that the procedures of getting from place A to B are so strict, for example, you are examples of that, but you are also examples that it is possible. Still, it is possible. So, in a way, I hope that people will still think about, or think more about, like, we can do international collaborations, and think that there is this amazing possibility, and we are here an example that you came through and you are healthy. And it is possible. So I hope that it will be possible next year and years to come. And I hope that people will understand the value of others being here. And in a way, when we are going, like, closing down countries at the moment, then it makes it even more valuable to have these collaborations and so on. Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to share, what we haven't been talking about?
I was thinking earlier when we were talking about like how it is to work during the corona situation or this pandemic situations, and there was, like, from us performers when we first met, at least the first 2 weeks, us being dancers, physical people, there was this intense urge to dance together.
Yeah.
We were like being asked a couple of times, like, do you want to work on some solo work or do you want to work in a group? And everyone's like, group, please. and it's just, I think it's interesting to see how. I think it's important to notice that even though the past year has been the way it has been, that urge hasn't disappeared.
Yeah.
It's like it has just gotten stronger.
Yeah.
And again to kind of say, like, we have just really valued it more, what we haven't had.
Yeah.
And that we haven't just grown used to it, kind of a deal.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important and interesting to think about that, and important to hold on to that that value of being able to connect with people physically, and not just that, but also get to express art through people who are connecting physically.
Yeah.
And I think like that's also like one of the things we are like hungering for, that because we all seeing the performance or streamed digitally is not the same, because you're not in the same space. You're not feeling that connection that the people are having on stage or wherever. So I think that is like a really like integral part of our humanity.
Yeah. That is actually really good thinking, like this could go, if you're pessimistic, this could go like, okay, we will be all or just individuals and we will grow to be, because we can't be together at the moment in a same way, but actually to see that the urge is to go towards others, because I really felt that sitting there, like I'm always like 30 meters apart from you. I'm like, I want to hug you. To realize that this hasn't done, this is not like me sitting here and being used to this, because I have been like this for a year, but actually to feel that this is actually quite strong, the urge to go near others and to be with people. And I think that is actually really hopeful to think about that. Maybe this does actually, maybe this makes people value community and being together more. I hope so.
Yes, I was just thinking how art touches some unconscious sides of humans, of people. And listening to you, I was thinking like maybe in the Greek time, you had these tragedies where people were crying and singing because the audience needed that, learn to cry. And it's so overwhelming to think that we just need to see people hugging because we need to hug each other. It sounds absurd, but it's happening.
It is, because I realized that I'm at the moment, because you can't see live shows, or you can see them streamed and so on. But when I'm watching a TV show, I'm seeing people touching. I'm like, okay, this was done before pandemic. They are touching each other on the couch, so this is before. So actually, that touching is so provoking, and it actually goes. Just someone touching another person is huge at the moment. So that's not bad to realize that.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. But I think we are done with this now. So thank you both. It was really nice to talk with you.
Thanks,
Thanks, Laura. It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much.